From the gas station to the grocery store, Americans are struggling with rising prices and historic inflation.
The price of gas, rent, food, used and new cars all up. And consumer sentiment is down to a 10-year low. Rising prices have left 1 in 4 people feeling that their standard of living has dropped.
The latest poll shows the president's approval rating continuing to drop, even after the infrastructure bill was passed, with Democrats still divided whether to spend another $1.75 trillion on his social program and climate plan, and as Americans' paychecks are stretched. Inflation soaring to a 31-year high, prices surging across the board, including gas jumping 50%, beef costing 20% more. Just today, Tyson Foods saying it's raised its beef, pork, and chicken prices because of escalating expenses. Kiana Cook in Maryland is struggling to pay the spiking costs.
Chuck Rose could feed my niece and her kids, and it's about like this, $35, $25. Just absolutely outrageous.
The Moser family in Pennsylvania also feeling the pinch.
Spending $100 a week in gas is very taxing.
Man, they're high, really high, man. I know it's California, but these are some really high gas prices.
I can't do this anymore.
I ride my motorcycle a lot more. I have a 1-ton diesel truck that just sits at the side of the house. Can't afford to fill it up.
So gas prices in California, I have to look down at this. The number is so big I shouldn't even need my glasses. $4.67 for a gallon in California. That's more than it's ever been there. And you don't have to go to California for high gas prices. They're high around the country. What's the administration doing today to address that problem?
Yeah, I mean, John, the president is all over this. He really is very concerned about, inflation, obviously, and the price of gasoline, because that's the most obvious manifestation of it.
And as the holidays approach, Americans are seeing higher prices on everything from gas to groceries. This week, the president changed his message on the issue, acknowledging for the first time inflation is, quote, worrisome and, quote, one of the most pressing economic concerns of the American people. A response, perhaps, to the political reality. A brand new poll from the Washington Post, ABC News shows Biden's approval rating sinking to 41%, a new low, largely because of a negative shift among Democrats and independents, as 70% of the American people, according to this poll, rate the economy negatively. 70%. 63% of the American people think Biden has not accomplished much so far.
Costs are going up much faster in middle America, so in many cases, the people who can least afford it are being hit the hardest. We've all been focusing on that headline 6.2% inflation figure, but there are 19 states in the middle of the country experiencing price increases above 7%, while the coastal states are seeing rates below the national average. Now, this reality manifests even more starkly when it comes to energy. Midwesterners in particular can expect higher heating bills as we head into the winter season. Now, coastal cities saw utility gas prices jump, but nowhere near as much as those in the Midwest. Look at Minneapolis at 86%. And that inequality in price increases is even being felt in putting food on the table. Look at Detroit. We've got 7.4% there. We've been discussing how much more expensive holiday dinners are going to be than last year, but middle America is feeling that increase more. Now, if you put this disparity in context of wage increases, it gets worse. The national average has increased 4.9%, but California and Missouri show a troubling trend. So the areas being hit hardest by inflation are also seeing poor wage growth. Now, while some are claiming inflation is transitory, many experts fear this is just the beginning. And as middle America, where of course many states voted Republican in the last election, feels this crunch more deeply, many are asking why the administration isn't taking more note. Neil.
A new ABC News Washington Post poll shows the president's approval rating at a new low, just 41%, even losing support among Democrats and independents, with approval for his handling of the economy plummeting to 39%. Those numbers a warning shot for Democrats ahead of next year's midterms. More than half of voters saying if the elections were held today, they would back a Republican for Congress, the largest margin in decades.
That was a big roundup of corporate media panic as Joe Biden destroys our country. I think the corporate media are very upset about this, generally because, one, if you don't have an economy that works or a country that works, corporate media is dead. They don't have advertisers. You don't have any media. Two, they're the ones who ran Joe Biden's campaign, so it's essentially their failing campaign. Joe Biden didn't run a campaign. Joe Biden had corporate media run his campaign for him, and he was totally and 100% propped up and propagated by the corporate media. They're the best campaign managers around because they control all these airwaves. That's who ran Joe Biden's campaign. So it's actually these people who are failing. Shame on them. Shame on them.
I haven't heard a Democrat, I certainly haven't heard a Democrat this year talk about how groceries cost more, how gas at the pump is costing more, how sometimes when you go to the grocery store, they're empty shelves. Sometimes when you go to the hardware store to get a part to fix something in your house, they're empty shelves. You take your car to get it fixed. They've got to wait a long time to get parts from here or parts from there. The supply chain is screwed up. Inflation is high. People that have family restaurants can't find people who will actually work for them. This is where Americans live.
If you look at it from coast to coast, it was a warning to Democrats that their congressional majorities are in grave danger. Terry McAuliffe, running for his old job as governor in Virginia, fell a net 12.5 points off of Mr. Biden's 2020 victory in that state. Even in victory, Governor Phil Murphy's net loss in New Jersey compared to what Biden got in 2020 was roughly 13 points. Kind of familiar. So what happened? Was the standoff between progressives and moderates partly to blame? Probably. Did President Biden misread his mandate? Many Democrats think he did. Was the public's sense that the country was on the wrong track a factor? Clearly.
New GDP numbers for quarter three released just moments ago. I've got no idea what they are. Chief business correspondent Christine Romans does.
2%. That is less than expected. And it's a downshift from the spring when we had a really robust 6.7% economic growth. And I'm going to tell you why.
Fear, stress, anxiety, frustration. About all sorts of issues, right? And they might not have the same kind of anxiety about the same issue, but there is this feeling of dread, of discontent, of a country that's sort of stalled out and not delivering in the way that Biden promised, that Democrats have promised.
Well, look, I think he's got a pretty big credibility crisis on his hands because all of these problems in some ways showed up after he said something basically the exact opposite. Afghanistan withdrawal wasn't going to be messy. This wasn't going to look like Saigon. The booster shots, he came out and essentially said 8 months and even indicated maybe we should start it as soon as 5 months. Now we're not sure if anybody under 65 is going to get a booster shot. So, he's had, and of course the border has been, whether this is, we can talk about the border problems. You could say there's years in the making, but it's pretty clear we have a bigger problem now than we've had in years. And these policies have turned into becoming a magnet. So he's got a lot of work to do. The UN speech, look, he's got some credibility issues on the world stage, make sure that people still view America as not just a stable democracy, but a competent leader of the free world right now.
We got to stop. We got to get off of this. These people have got to understand they're not popular around the country. People don't like them, and they're voting because that's the only way that they can express themselves and how much they disagree with this. And again, I go back, and it's not just Virginia and New Jersey. It's literally everywhere up to and including Seattle. And there's a real lesson here, and it can be corrected. But these people have to understand, you're not popular. People don't ride in a car with you. They don't ride next to you in the subway. You're annoying people, and they got to understand that.
Let's walk through them, and let's start with the North Star of American politics, the president's approval rating. 48% of Americans approve right now of the job President Biden is doing. 52%, a majority of you now disapprove of the job the president is doing. Here's another way to look at that. As the disapproval goes up. Look at this. Back in March, 4 in 10 Americans disapproved. Now a majority, 52%. You see the steady progression rise of the president's disapproval rate. That's one way to see the intensity is on the other side. You might have just seen that last Tuesday's elections. The intensity is on disapproval. Here's another way to look at it. How about the percentage of Americans who strongly approve of the president's job performance? Well, that was 34%. More than a third of Americans strongly approved of the president's job performance back in April. That number is now down to 15%. 15% is the president's numbers.
As Americans look ahead to the holiday season, they are currently worried about rising inflation driving up the cost of many goods, a backed up supply chain delaying their orders, and painfully high prices at the gas pump.
This is going to affect the American people, the family, for Christmas, for trips going anywhere, because this prices of gas and oil is going to keep rising. They have got to get the American people back to work.
Should Americans, in what will likely be a cold winter, most of them are, expect to pay higher prices for heating their homes?
Yeah, this is going to happen. It will be more expensive this year than last year.
This, and also Thanksgiving is now less than a month away. Are you ready? And it's shaping up to be the most expensive meal in the history of the holiday.
What?
No, you wouldn't believe it. Consumer groups say almost every ingredient in a traditional American Thanksgiving, from the disposable aluminum roasting pan to the pumpkin pie, will cost more. The supply chain crisis, trade policies, labor shortages, weather, and inflation are all contributing to higher prices.
The price of meat, poultry, fish, and eggs in U.S. cities has soared by about 15% since last year. More Americans are being forced to find help at food banks, and now those vital safety nets are hurting too.
Inflation is your uninvited guest for the holidays this year. Ag economists are saying, grocery stores are saying, they expect a run on turkeys, a run on birds, because people gather again this year. Take a look at this. We're expecting the price to top a record high of $1.36 per pound this holiday season. That's nearly $22 for a 16-pound turkey. Your sides, that's a problem too. All of those prices are rising for potatoes, for biscuits, for vegetables and apples. All of these are up since last Thanksgiving. Potato prices up 3.5%, biscuits up 4%. That's just since last year. Mixed vegetables up almost 4%. Those apples to make your signature pie up nearly 8%. And driving over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house is more expensive this year because of the surge in gas prices. The national average for a gallon of gas, $3.40 right now. Look at the difference from last year. It's up some 38%.
Those supply chain problems we've been telling you about, well, they're really hitting home for small businesses that find it hard to compete with the big stores.
And this trucking shortage really is the weakest link of this entire supply chain. If the trucks can't get to the ports and move cargo, then the ports are backed up. And there's a growing consensus amongst officials that this supply chain crisis is going to go well into 2022. So buy early. Don't expect to get everything you want.
Thank you for watching. We are 100% independent news. Are you sick of being lied to? We certainly are. That's why we started this channel. But we can't do it without you. We can't keep going without your help. All we ask is that you click like and subscribe and share this video. It's free and it keeps us going. It keeps us growing. It keeps us getting the truth out there to break the rotted corporate media infrastructure that wants to lie to you every single day, wants to corrupt your narratives, your truth, your story, and your very society. So support us by clicking like, clicking subscribe, and thank you, Patriots.